Harry, you're a wizard, didn't you know? Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, chapters 5 and 6. Let's talk about that. Hey, John here. Welcome back to my channel. And like I always say, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you see, and hit that bell notification so you're the first to know when I drop a video. Let's talk chapters 5 and 6. I just want to take a second to step back into the end of chapter 4 for just a second. For some reason, when I read chapter 4, I was thinking that Harry and Hagrid left the hut that night. However, they did not. In the movie, it makes it look like they do leave the hut that night and they take off. But not in the book. In the book, in the beginning of chapter 5, they stay the night in the hut. They wake up the next morning, and Harry begins to wake up before he even opens his eyes. He thinks the whole thing's a dream, but he's going to find out it's not. And there is a lot in chapter 5 that's not even in the movie. So let's talk about all of that. Let's start out with the fact that they stayed the night in that hut with the Dursleys and waited until the next morning to leave and go to Diagon Alley. In the movie, it looks like they take off immediately.
We're a bit behind schedule. Let's be off. Unless you'd rather stay, of course.
Hagrid immediately takes Harry, and they leave in the middle of the storm that night. However, they did not. One thing I like about the beginning of chapter 5 is you see another owl, and this time he's not delivering mail, he's delivering a newspaper, and then you see him expect to get paid. He wants to get paid, and so you see how the wizarding world, how they pay owls to deliver newspapers. And how much do you pay an owl to deliver a newspaper? Apparently it's 5 nuts, however much that is. I think it's funny that when Hagrid and Harry leave the hut, they take the boat that the Dursleys used to get to the hut. That tells me they left the Dursleys on this little island. Which brings me to the question, how did they get back? But this time around, they use the boat, and Hagrid uses some magic, even though he's not supposed to. Uses some magic to speed up the process a little bit, and I think that bought him some time. I think that was a good decision. I like how through conversations between Harry and Hagrid, we get introduced to Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic. And we find out that he may not be the best Minister of Magic. He tends to foul things up a bit. Hagrid said he's a bungler if there ever was one. So Hagrid explains to Harry about the Ministry of Magic, and what their job is to do is to keep the wizarding world away from the Muggles so they don't find out about it. And when Harry asks why, Hagrid says, "Blimey, Harry, everyone would be wanting magic solutions to their problems. Nah, we'd be best left alone." Another thing that's not in the movies is when Harry and Hagrid get to London, Hagrid is walking the streets just looking at random everyday things, and he's like, "Oh, look at the things these Muggles think up." Like he's never seen these items before.
What are you looking at?
That makes me wonder, how often is Hagrid in the real world, and how much of the real world has he seen? It doesn't seem like he's seen a lot of the real world. But also, I wonder if he's in the wizarding world, he sees magic on a daily basis. Why would he be so amazed at everyday Muggle-made items. All right, so Hagrid and Harry jump on a train, and this is not the Hogwarts Express. They just get on a regular train, and Hagrid's complaining about the train taking too long, the seats being too small, this and that. He seems to be having a hard time in the Muggle world. So Hagrid takes Harry through the streets of London. He takes him to the Leaky Cauldron. We do see this part in the movie, and we get to see the people in the pub. They know who Harry is. They're quite familiar with him.
Bless my soul. It's Harry Potter.
And when he walks in, some people know him as soon as they see him, and other people, as soon as he's introduced and they find out who he is, they immediately go out of their way to shake his hand.
Welcome back, Mr. Potter. Welcome back.
Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter. I can't believe I'm meeting you at last.
In the Leaky Cauldron, we're introduced to some people. There's a bartender named Tom.
Ah, Hagrid. Usual, I presume?
No thanks, Tom. I'm on official Hogwarts business.
There's Doris Crockford. That's the first time I've heard that name. I don't know if we'll be introduced to these people again in the story. But it's just interesting to see these names and try to remember them. And then go through the story, see if they reappear. Here's another one, Daedalus Diggle. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same guy that Professor McGonagall was complaining about possibly setting off shooting stars back in Chapter 1. We're also introduced to Professor Quirrell.
Hello, Professor. I didn't see you there. Harry, this is Professor Quirrell. He'll be your defense against the dark arts teacher at Hogwarts.
He is a stuttering professor at Hogwarts. Doesn't seem very sure of himself. You kind of wonder how he got the job at Hogwarts to begin with. Doesn't seem to be very good at what he does.
Fearfully fascinating subject. Not that you need it, eh, Potter?
Hagrid explains to Harry that he had taken a year off and went to the Black Forest, where he met some vampires, and he's never been the same ever since. Eventually, Hagrid gets Harry out of the Leaky Cauldron, makes his way to the wall, taps on it. It opens up to Diagon Alley, and they make their way to Gringotts. Now, at Gringotts, we're introduced to Griphook, the goblin that takes Harry to his vault. Now, one thing I thought that was funny in this part of the book is when Hagrid's looking for Harry's key to get in his vault, he's pulling all this stuff out of his pockets, piling it up on the counter.
Oh, wait a minute. Got it here somewhere. Ha! There's the little devil.
Man, apparently Hagrid just walks around everywhere with everything in his pockets. Everything he might think he needs, he puts it in his pockets. But I guess if you have pockets as big as Hagrid's, you can fit a lot of stuff in there. In the movie, it cuts to the scene where they're rolling up to the front of Harry's vault. You don't get to see how the book describes them going down the rails on the cart, and Hagrid's getting sick, and he's looking around, and he thinks he sees fire at the end of one of the tunnels. And Harry starts asking Hagrid, what's the difference in a stalagmite and a stalactite? And Hagrid says, well, stalagmite has an M in it for one thing, and hey, you gotta quit asking me questions, because I'm about to puke.
No more questions. Don't ask any more questions.
And when they finally make it to the vault, Hagrid has to stop and brace himself to keep from being sick. He had to lean on the wall. His knees are trembling. So he really needed some help at that point. Another thing that's in the book that's not in the movie is it's explained that if anyone other than a goblin tries to access a vault, they'll be sucked into the room and trapped in that vault until somebody comes to check on them. And Harry asks how often they check on the vaults, and he said maybe once every 10 years. To me, that adds some depth to the story and adds some depth to what Gringotts is all about. So after Harry gets his money from the vault, they leave Gringotts, and it's time to get Harry his school uniform. Now, at this point in the book, this part isn't in the movie, but I thought it was interesting how Hagrid decided he was going to slip off to the Leaky Cauldron and get a drink. So he left Harry by himself to get fitted for his school uniform while he goes and gets a drink.
Suddenly, poof.
Oof. Come on, Hagrid. So Hagrid drops Harry at Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions. So we're introduced to Madame Malkin, the owner of the shop, and we're also introduced to a character that we will later find out is Draco Malfoy.
Think my name was funny, do you?
So Harry meets Draco, and Draco starts going on about flying brooms and Quidditch and how great he is at Quidditch and how it's a crime that he's not on the team.
Oh, for God's sake, pull yourself together, man.
And Harry immediately picks up on something. He quickly realizes that Draco is putting off the same vibes as Dudley. And that little bit of information tells you a lot about how intuitive Harry is. And he picks up on things about people, about their personalities. Harry can sniff out a bully anywhere. Draco goes on to say that he's sure he'll be in Slytherin once he gets to Hogwarts. And he makes the comment, "Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you?" Watch yourself. And while Draco and Harry are talking, Hagrid shows back up with ice cream and taps on the window and shows Harry that he can't come in with the ice cream. And Draco says, "Hey, look at this guy." But before he can continue on, Harry says, "Oh yeah, that's Hagrid." Yeah, basically saying he's with me. I can't imagine what Draco would say about Hagrid. He's a bully, so of course he's going to say something negative about Hagrid. He's also an idiot, because why would you say something like that to somebody that could clearly mop the floor with you and not think a second thought about it? Draco goes on to say, "I've heard he's a sort of savage, lives in a hut on the school grounds, and every now and then he gets drunk and tries to do magic and ends up setting fire to his bed." If that's what you hear about Hagrid, then that's had to have happened more than once. Hagrid, how many beds have you burned up? I like this whole back and forth between Harry and Draco in the book, because in the movie, we're not introduced to Draco until Harry gets to Hogwarts. In the book, we get a sneak preview, and we get to see quite early who Draco is and what he's about. He's just a bully. So after Harry leaves Madame Malkin's, he's sharing ice cream with Hagrid, and they're talking. And he's asking Hagrid about, what is Slytherin and what is Hufflepuff. And Hagrid explains to him, "Oh, it's school houses. There's 4. Everyone says Hufflepuff are a lot of duffers, but Come on, Hagrid. You don't have any Hufflepuff love, man? I don't know what a duffer is, but it doesn't sound like Hufflepuff gets a lot of love, and that's sad. Another part that's not in the movie is when Harry goes to Flourish and Blots. Harry goes in there to get his school books, and while he's in there, he stumbles across a book called Curses and Counter Curses. Bewitch your friends and befuddle your enemies with the latest revenges. Hair loss, jelly legs, tongue tying, and much, much more. By Professor Vindictus Viridian. Now here's another name that's popping up. Now this is one that I hope I will remember, and I hope that maybe this person, this professor, will come back into the story at some point. Maybe we'll see them later. But while Harry's in there, he tells Hagrid, "Oh, I'm looking for a curse for Dudley," and Hagrid says, "I'm not saying that's not a good idea, but you're not to use magic in the Muggle world except in very special circumstances." I think it's funny that even Hagrid is not opposed to the idea of cursing Dudley. Another thing we see in the book that's not in the movie is that Harry's owl is a birthday gift from Hagrid. Hagrid bought him an owl because it was his birthday.
Harry, happy birthday!
Super nice of Hagrid to do that. And after all this, the last shop they go to, and in my opinion, the most important, is Ollivanders. And I really love the sign on the front of Ollivanders. It says, Ollivanders, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. 382 BC. That's insane. I really enjoyed this part of the book in Ollivanders. I feel like the book does this more justice than the movie does. Because in the movie, Harry goes into Ollivanders by himself. In the book, Hagrid goes with him. And there's a conversation between Hagrid and Ollivander regarding how Hagrid had been expelled, and you're reminded that they broke Hagrid's wand in half. Apparently, Hagrid is not only not allowed to do magic, he isn't even allowed to have a wand. But we've seen that he obviously has a wand in his umbrella. How he got it, I don't know. Because it seems like the only way to get a wand is through Ollivanders. And if Ollivander doesn't know that Hagrid has a wand, then how exactly did he get a wand in his umbrella? Unless he's still using his broken wand. And then if that's the case, how effective can that be? But we see in the back and forth between Ollivander and Hagrid, Ollivander is obviously picking up on the fact that Hagrid is doing something he's not supposed to be doing. Now let's talk about Ollivander for a second. This guy, what is his story? Because he remembers not only every person that he has sold a wand to.
I remember everyone I've ever sold, Mr. Potter.
He remembers all these tiny details about the wand.
It is curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar.
About the length of the wand, the core of the wand, all the characteristics of the wand. How does he remember all this? He remembers the wands he sold to Harry's parents and when they came in and bought their wands. He remembers the wand he sold to Voldemort, and he obviously regrets it to this day. So I think it's amazing that he remembers all these details, and it makes me wonder, is that just a characteristic of Ollivander, or is there magic involved in keeping those memories? That's something else I would like to know. But I really liked how this played out in the book, how Ollivander would find a wand, hand it to Harry. Harry would start to do something, and Ollivander would immediately go, "Nope, that's not the one," and just snatch it right out of his hand.
No, definitely not.
And grab another one and do the same thing. Nope, that's not it. Until he came to the one that he knew would be a good fit for Harry. And it just so happens to be the brother wand of Voldemort's. Now we know that that's not just a coincidence. Another detail that's different between the book and the movie is in the movie, Ollivander just finds a wand and hands it to him until he thinks it's a good fit. In the book, there's obviously much more that goes into picking a wand, or a wand picking you. You got to take measurements apparently, and you have to measure. You have to take measurements apparently, and you got to measure everything. You got to measure from your elbow to your fingers. You've also got to measure your elbow to your wrist, and then you've got to measure from your shoulder to the floor, and then you got to measure around your head, because that matters. You can't mess that up. If you get that measurement wrong, you're never going to find the right wand, and it's going to be terrible. And you got to measure between your nostrils. Oh my gosh, you've got to get that right. If you don't get that right, you're going to be in a world of pain at Hogwarts. None of your spells are going to be right. Everything's going to be wrong. And then you're not going to pass your classes. It's going to be a nightmare. So make sure you get that right and get that right. Those two are the most important. So once they finish up with Ollivanders, they go back through the Leaky Cauldron. They leave Diagon Alley and come back to the real world in London. So they stop for a hamburger, and they have a conversation, and Harry starts to doubt himself again, because we see that humility inside Harry come out again. He's questioning why he's famous. And all these people know me, and they think I'm famous, and I'm not. How can they expect great things from me when I don't know what I'm doing? I like to see that humility in Harry come out again, because that's what leads him to be the hero. Hagrid takes Harry back to the train station, gives him his ticket for the train for Hogwarts, and then from there, we see Hagrid disappear. This leads us into Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. Now in the movie, they make it look like Harry goes directly from buying his wand at Ollivanders to now he's going back to the train station to look for Platform 9 3/4.
Your train leaves in 10 minutes. There's your ticket. Stick to it, Harry. That's very important. Stick to your ticket.
But in the book, we see that what actually happened was Harry went back to the Dursleys. So when Harry goes back to the Dursleys, they don't even bother to speak to Harry. And the really sad thing is, Harry views them not talking to him as an improvement to how they usually treat him. That's really sad. So Harry spends his last month with the Dursleys basically by himself in his room with Hedwig, who is flying in and out of the window and bringing in dead mice. The day before Harry's supposed to leave for Hogwarts, Harry actually asks his Uncle Vernon for a ride to the train station. And Vernon actually agrees to give him a ride. I thought that was surprising. So Vernon gives Harry a ride to the train station and actually helps him bring his trunk into the train station. So as Harry's walking around the train station looking for platform 9 3/4, wondering what's going on, we soon get to meet some of my favorite characters in the story. We see Ginny Weasley and her mom walking through the train station, and they've got Ron, George, and Fred with them, and Percy is even there. I don't remember a lot about Percy from the movies, but I know he's a strict rule follower.
I happen to be a school prefect.
Now, in this chapter, we get to see, not only in the book, but in the movie as well, that Fred and George, they are some funny guys.
He's not Fred, I am. Honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother.
They're always playing pranks, always looking for a laugh.
I'm only joking. I am Fred.
And that is portrayed in the book and on the screen very well, in my opinion. We get to see Fred and George. They go through the brick wall. Ron goes through the brick wall. And then Harry finds out that he's got to go through the brick wall. With all these people magically going through this brick wall, why are they so free to do that in front of all these muggles?
Here, packed with muggles, of course. Come on.
That are walking all around them. How does no one notice them walking through this wall? Is that ever explained? When the twins find out who Harry is, they're very impressed to meet Harry Potter. And they go back to their mom and they're like, hey, you know that kid that was talking to us? You'll never guess who he is. Harry Potter. He's Harry Potter. Another Weasley we get to meet is Percy.
I happen to be a school prefect.
Now Percy, he's got this badge that says prefect.
Prefect.
He obviously thinks it says perfect because he freaking loves this badge.
Prefect.
He loves this title that he's got.
Prefect.
Thinks that he's the most important person on this train, apparently. Even the twins give Percy a hard time about being a prefect. Percy reminds him, "Oh, I've got to be first on the train. I'm a prefect." And one of the twins says, "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about that." Said the other twin. "Once or twice? A minute? All summer?" "Oh, shut up," said Percy the prefect. They refer to him as Percy the prefect. That's great. Even Ginny, when she finds out that the boy that was just there is Harry Potter, she is smitten. She wants to meet Harry Potter. And I think that's funny, considering the future love story that we got coming up. In the train station, we're also introduced to two more characters. We're introduced to Neville Longbottom. In the movie, we're not introduced to him until Harry gets to Hogwarts. But in the book, we get to see him in the train station. He's lost his frog. And apparently he does this frequently. We're also introduced to a character in the book named Lee Jordans. And apparently, this kid has a tarantula. I don't remember ever seeing or hearing about this character in the movies. I think this was completely overlooked. So Harry gets on the train, finds himself a seat, gets his bags put up, and that's when he is formally introduced to Ron Weasley.
I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. I'm Harry Potter.
Now, this scene in the movie is also different from what happens in the book. In the book, it plays out a little more, and we get to meet a few more characters. As Harry and Ron are talking amongst themselves, we once again see Neville Longbottom. He comes in, and he has lost his frog again. Come on, Neville. What are you doing with that frog, man? You got to keep up with it. We also get introduced to the great Hermione Granger.
I'm Hermione Granger. And you are?
She is going to prove to be an asset to this team. She's a bookworm. She's the know-it-all.
You've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know? Just there.
One thing we miss out on in the movie is that we once again get to see Draco Malfoy. We get to see him and a couple of his minions, Crabbe and Goyle.
This is Crabbe and Goyle. And I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy.
He sees candy that Harry had bought, and he'd already stolen everyone else's food, so he came to steal Harry's candy. Draco comes in, and he starts mouthing off about the Weasleys, about them being poor and not being able to afford anything.
Red hair and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley.
And he makes the comment that, so Draco comments to Harry, "You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." And with this, he sticks his hand out to shake Harry's hand. Harry does not shake his hand because Harry knows this guy's no good.
I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks.
Harry's dealt with these kind of people all his life, all 11 years of it, and he knows how to deal with these people. So Harry didn't shake his hand, and Harry tells him, "I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks." Way to go, Harry. I really like how Harry, despite being in his position of servanthood his whole life and being bullied his whole life, he doesn't cower to a bully. He has learned to stand up to a bully because he knows you can never cower to a bully or you will be bullied forever. So Draco tries to steal Harry's candy, but what Crabbe and Goyle did not count on was a fight from Scabbers. So I like how this scene played out in the book better once again, and that's chapters 5 and 6. So my takeaways from that is, my big question right now is, how do Muggles find out about Hogwarts? Because if the wizarding world is supposed to be kept secret from Muggles, then how do kids from Muggle families end up going to Hogwarts? How do they get accepted into that? Hit me up with a comment about that. How do Muggle families find out about Hogwarts and send their kids there? Because Hermione, come on, her parents were both Muggles. She came from a non-wizarding family, and she went to Hogwarts. How did she find out about it? How was she accepted? How did Hogwarts know to send her a letter? It's my question. Send me a comment on it, guys. And like I said before, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. I really appreciate it. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you see. And hit me up with comments, guys. I'm loving the comments. I love to hear from you guys. And the more we can go back and forth, the more fun this makes it for me. So guys, thanks again for watching. Until next time.